Alright, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so we're going back to a staple issue of ours of WoW, and I don't know, we didn't actually do one on BFA after it launched, so let's talk BFA, guys.
Hello.
Yes, hello, Raymond.
BFA. Did anyone have any issues with launch?
Lag, lots of lag.
It depends what you mean by launch. If you mean the long queue times and the almost impossible to get in queue, so the fact that I thought I lost my character several times, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
So
Usual.
that's all pretty normal.
Yeah, I had no issues.
That's just me playing the game.
Yeah, I typically lose my character, but then I put on my glasses and I'm like, oh, there it is.
I didn't have any issues of servers are full, cannot log in issues, unless anyone else did.
I think that's because we have a medium population server, though, Nagrand, not the
I think in the
highest
Grand,
population. Also,
I mean,
hashtag
at the
something
moment,
Raiders,
Grand is
Nagrand, come
constantly
join us.
saying full, or high.
yeah. Also, I think BFA's one has been pretty smooth. It sort of held the same advantage Legion did of there's not a huge amount that you overlap with everybody else at the start. Like the quest line into it is essentially all instanced until the point where you get to pick which your starting zone is, and then you've got the player base split across 6 different zones.
Although, that first room there where you're picking your zone, that was a mess. Holy shit.
But that's like the only non-instance part up until that stage.
Yeah. I'm so glad they made it so that you could click on the NPCs through people's bodies. Fuck, such a good change.
Or do they not used to have that?
Nope. You used to have to navigate through the mess of bodies to click on those NPCs.
Oh, well, there you go. That's showing my years
Yes.
and how
You're
few
like-
I've had.
You're like 12.
Yeah, that's actually reasonably recent in the grand scheme of things. Like, they didn't have that when I started, and I didn't start that long before you guys.
We've been playing for years, Cameron. Years!
You say that, but we have been playing for years.
Exactly. And Cameron is our godfather of WoW.
Alright, well, let's get into the content a little bit. First off, leveling. How did everybody feel about the level part of this one?
Yep, it was great!
I have to admit, it was a very similar experience to when I started first leveling in Legion. The first time through was a pain in the ass, and I didn't enjoy it that much. But at least going through it the first time, you figured out exactly what you wanted to do, where you wanted to go, what the fastest way to get through certain locations you didn't enjoy were. And the second time around, when I took my ult up, was basically a breeze. It took me almost no time at all.
I admit my one real criticism this time around was that it felt lacking with there only being 3 zones. Like,
Yeah.
it sort of felt like there was a bit of a hole there, and the amount that felt like it forced you to side quest very aggressively in one of the zones, even if you went and did the war campaign alongside it. Yeah. I wasn't a massive fan of that, but I think that's because they split it Alliance Horde this time, rather than trying to just keep it all as one pile. I much preferred the 4-zone approach of Legion.
And I think the only reason why I didn't actually go with the four zone approach like last time is because of the new PvP system they introduced. It wouldn't have been really that useful for people to be constantly going around everywhere on the and getting ganked. So
War
obviously, exactly. So
Yeah, but you can turn that off.
yeah, you can turn it off, but most
But-
people use it originally for that 10% XP boost just for questing and everything, and most people found it valuable. If we'd had all the 6 zones merged on top of each other, I mean, I imagine most people would have had that turned off more often than they did now.
But if you had done Legion or Warlords or like any previous expansion on a PvP server, you would have been doing exactly the same thing as what War Mode would have been now.
Oh yeah, you're right. The difference is this time around they've introduced that mode to even our servers, which are primarily PvE with no PvP. It would obviously be a very vast different change to those of us who are quite happy to walk around and see our alliance companions flip them the bird and keep walking, as opposed to expecting that they're going to gank us simply because they've introduced war mode.
Yeah.
So what do the PvP servers get? They just got the option to turn it off.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is why I don't understand why people keep calling themselves a PvP server. Because we've got war mode now.
It's really not a thing anymore. They've really abolished that entire thing.
That's just their wank stick. Look at me, I was on a PvP server.
I think it's because it's just recent enough that the split is still there. Like, the majority of people that play on Frostmourne are still going to be people that wanted a PvP server.
Oh, exactly. It's what they've grown up with all their years. It's what they're used to.
Yeah.
Or you're like James, who started on a PvP server because he leveled with a girl who dumped him and he got stuck there.
Dude. His name isn't James, by the way. Isn't it like fucking Daryl?
Daryl.
I have to say, though, that out of everything in BFA, I feel that the leveling was the strongest part. The storylines of the zones were the strongest part of BFA.
I have to completely agree with you there. I really enjoyed a lot of the stories.
I think out of the many side quests, so many fucking side quests, and main plot, I only got bored with, I think, 2 side quests in Voldun and 1 in Nazmir, the swamp people. And there was a lot of bloody questing for side quests. I mentioned that before, Cam. But for most part, I really enjoyed it. Really, really engaging questline.
Actually, I think that is a point that, like, I know Luke's taken 2 characters through, and I think Nick's taken 2 characters through now, and I've taken 2 through of Legion. After my first run through, there were already zones that I considered a write-off, and I didn't want to have to redo the story section of that zone.
Surrender!
But no, I'm not even counting that. I am actually personally saying, what's the one on the far right?
Stormheim.
Yeah, Stormheim.
I like
personally.
Stormheim.
Yeah, Stormheim Club. Get out of here, scum.
I hated High Mountain.
I didn't mind High Mountain personally.
I kept on falling off the fucking mountains.
Oh, well, that's
in the
They
name.
were high.
There were. That's the thing. I don't know anybody that didn't have a zone that they dreaded having to redo in Legion. But this time around, at least, I'm not writing any of the 3 off. Don't want to even have to touch that next time. Luke and Nick, given that you guys have done a second through, did you find something similar, or?
No, actually, I completely agree with you. I actually really enjoyed going through them all a second time because it's a slightly more richer experience knowing what to expect and then getting to look at it from different angles. You think, okay, I know this is happening, but I didn't see what with this aspect last time. So you go in with a bit of an insight and for me, that made the stories much more richer. That's why I can't really say I don't like any of those zones. I mean, to be fair, some of the ones over on the Alliance side are a bit but all the Horde ones really appeal to me.
I haven't really probably done anything on the Alliance side. Is it just a side quest the same?
For the best part, the only thing that's carried over is the side quests, yeah.
Okay, so in that case, there's not really any story to be had.
Well, the main storyline is completely separate.
I was gonna say,
I think
there's definitely an Alliance
There's no
story
story
there.
in Alliance. Let's leave it
The
there.
Horde gets this beautiful 3 zones of heavy questing, and the Alliance gets a couple of side quests. Nah, you're done, buddy. Go.
Hey, they get horses too.
Oh, fuck off.
Alright. Let's talk instances, like PvE instances then. Dungeons and the 1 raid so far. I'm going to say there's no dungeons so far that have exactly struck me as, yep, I really enjoy running this dungeon, but likewise there's not exactly any I can say, yeah, hell no.
Motherload. Fuck Motherload. I hate Motherload.
Like,
Fancier Storm, anyone?
I completely wrote off Archway and...
Yeah, definitely wrote off Archway.
And Court of Stars in Legion. I completely wrote those 2 off of... Yeah, there was no way in hell. and those were release dungeons. But this time around, I don't think there's any dungeon I would say absolutely no to. There are definitely ones that I'm less happy about, but likewise, in Legion, I was always pretty fond of, oh yeah, Maltharian's Lair, let's do this, or I have Ashara, let's do this.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. That the only thing basically that I can say about the PFA dungeons at the moment is that I've found them. There's some that are very easy, like our Freehold and Atelazar, and then there are those that are just outright painful to do on any level of difficulty. So that's your Shrine and your what's the other one? It's on the tip of my tongue. King's Rest. But realistically, outside of that, yeah, you're right. There's none of them that I would outright say, no, that's a crappy dungeon, I'll never touch it. It's more like, oh, these ones are easy, I'll do these ones quick and simple. These ones, oh, they're difficult, I need to have a bit of strategy, a bit of a thought pattern going into these ones. They're really just a challenge that's there in this time around, as opposed to the outright, nope, that dungeon's crap, I have don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of instanced things, though, the Warfronts, I feel, could have been better.
Underwhelming, yes.
I think,
considering the expansion is called Battle for Azeroth, and it's supposed to be a huge focus on the totally justified and definitely fair war between the Horde and Alliance, why did they not give the option for PvP Warfronts?
I think there's two weak points for Warfronts. That we launched with only a single Warfront.
Oh god, yes.
And that the Warfronts don't have the same difficulty options that either dungeons, raids, or more specifically island expeditions have, of having a PvE difficulty range as well as a PvP option. I think.
Yeah, it certainly enriched the experience a little bit more. Because especially now that we're coming back around to doing basically our first Warfront all over again, it's really just a bit of a bore. You do it simply because of the fact that of the option for gear and everything, but outside of that, I don't think many people will be overly running it fast unless you're a fresh alt who's in need of some quick gearing.
I'm going to run it because I want the rest of the transmog, but yeah, pretty much. There's no real reason for me to run that anymore.
Gear is anything there. It's not because you enjoy the Warfront. It's not because you find this everything about it fun and enjoyable. If anything, it's just simply because it's a convenience for a week.
Well, I think that's the underlying thing. And well, given that we're on Warfront, let's just roll Island Expeditions sort of into this, as well as the new features of. Is there anybody here that would actually be running it if they weren't holding the rewards over the top of your head?
Nope.
Probably not.
That's what I was gonna say. Basically, that describes everything. We wouldn't really do it unless there wasn't rewards.
Well, if it was if Warfronts were only the 340 gear at this point, wouldn't be bothering.
I'm 349. I would not give a shit.
And if I don't plan on doing a Warfront a second time this week.
I do.
And likewise, Islands, if it wasn't for the fact that it is the biggest single hit of Azeroth that you can get anywhere at the moment, I wouldn't be doing that weekly.
It's $2,500 when you finish it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's meaty. A meaty boy.
I think the only thing different this time around that is actually a nice change, and the award hanging over it isn't really the thing that's determining its popularity, is for some of us here anyway, is the PvP.
But they really, it's like they did well with this war mode idea, but then they just completely threw the ball through a glass window with Warfronts and Island Expeditions. There's just so much more opportunity there to have actual factional war. Like, we could have implemented the capture the flag system from Battlefield for some of these maps. For PvP. Like, Alterac Valley, I think, is something like that.
I was gonna say, they've done capture the flags before.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of them.
Talking on the PvP side of things, and I know this is more more because we haven't played it aggressively in a previous expansion, but I've been really enjoying the PvP this time round.
Oh, most definitely. It's really for someone who basically just said, basically leading up to all the other X packs said, "No, I have no interest in PvP at all." I jumped into this one and really have no interest in getting back out.
And I think the amount of PvE relevant gear that it is dropping has helped that a lot.
Oh, most definitely. It's a small added incentive, but ultimately the PvP itself is actually enjoyable.
Well, but let's be honest, like, and I know Nick and Raymond are still very, very, very light on the PvP, but would of like myself, you, Luke, and Mark, would any of us have really been doing much PvP this time round if it wasn't for the combination of there being another weekly chest and there being a weekly quest reward from doing it?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, that in itself was the first initiative for us to first try it. Over time, I think the usual thing, we played enough that it's grown on us, and now we enjoy it. But you are right. If that initial incentive of those bonus rewards every week weren't there, we probably wouldn't have even got back into it this time around, and we'd just still be doing PvE.
Mark?
Yeah, like, the rewards are good for it, but even if the rewards were there, like, I wouldn't be doing it if you guys weren't doing it. Like, I've tried it PvPing solo, and it just gets boring.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you are right. There in that sense, PvP is very similar to PvE, where it's always more fun to do it either in a group or with a team, and that's really the whole point of what WoW is. It's the reason why, in a way, we drag you along, Mark. You are our third.
Alright, just knowing that we're getting up there on our normal time, all the time that we normally keep this at, let's move through the last two quickly. Just raid. There's only the one raid so far. Just quick comments on the raid.
Bug riddled.
Really? How so?
Did you not watch Method's progression?
Yeah, but
No.
that's just standard mythic raiding. That's
half of those bugs still aren't fixed. You can still fuck the mother fight.
Yeah.
That's true, but I mean, I haven't watched any of those sort of things. But based on our own progression and what we've seen of it so far, I don't mind the bosses. I feel like this
4 bosses.
I feel like this expansion has been a lot of stand-in crap, and I've noticed a lot of poison, curses, and thunder, which hasn't been too bad. But I find that there's a good reason why mobile healers like druids and disc priests are so popular in those raids, and that's simply because standing around isn't fun.
Disco P.
To be fair, there seems to be a little bit of aggressive abuse of the crap spawns on ground beneath you this time around.
My lord. And the pattern never changes. They just change the colour. Fucking
exactly.
Spice it up, Blizzard, please.
And that's the same in dungeons or raids, and that's, in a way, it's sort of why things sometimes get a little bit stale. You're not so keen to spam everything all the time because you know what's coming. It's just going to be the same old crap all over the ground, and no way to get out of it.
Yeah. Mark?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, it doesn't sound like you've got much to add. Nick?
Yes. Just like what Mark. I agree with Mark.
What do you agree with?
That melee DPS are highly sought out to be killed in this X pack.
I agree.
I mean, that's not really the whole problem, because like I was saying, if
suck dick.
It's good to have melees, because in this particular one you need to have the mobility to be able to get in and get out. The problem that you have is when you combine it with casters, is that, like I said, there's shit going everywhere. Casters have to stand still to cast. Most of them, anyway. We're not talking about hunters here.
I mean, as someone that mainly mains a melee, it's nothing different. Like, it's all the same stuff. Like, melee always gets hit by stuff.
Exactly. It's the reason why there's always the balancing between the damage output of melee versus caster. Melees have to deal with more crap. Casters typically get to stand still. So obviously there's a balance.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, I don't mind the raid for what we've seen of it. I'm enjoying it and actually looking forward to us progressing in further. Outside of that, that's probably the most I have to give on that subject. But
All right. Unless somebody's got more to jump on the raid, then again, just knowing what we try to keep these as time-wise, there's one last one to talk about of where are people finding the problems with this expansion pack so far?
well, I wouldn't say it's a major problem, and it's probably the same one you see in everything. But I find it very difficult at the moment to prioritize professions and things. Not simply because of the fact that of the people reselling the stuff and everything for high prices on the auction house. I simply have trouble collecting my own resources, and I've noticed a trend. When you go to use a scrapper on your gear, I didn't realize that the type of gear you put into it indicated what you got out of it as materials.
Yeah.
So myself being a clothy, I did not realize that by smashing up my cloth, I was getting stuff for a tailor, whereas my character was an engineer and required mining materials.
Yeah.
So I automatically found myself at a huge disadvantage and basically found myself relying on basically going and mining ore everywhere. No, there are no kind strangers at the moment. Have you seen the auction house?
I have seen the auction house. I'm currently got a couple of things there that I've made. Hopefully I'm going to get some money off of them. It's the only reason dual crafting exists now is to sell it on the auction house for transmog.
But yeah, all in all, that's probably the
useful.
That's the only problem I found myself majorly is that I went into the X-Pack without a proper understanding of how some of those ways of getting materials worked, and now I'm sort of paying for it down the track. But that's probably more just a personal problem I've run into. Outside of that,
you say that, but I'm pretty sure weapons give you ore as well.
They do.
Weapons and things give me ore, yes, but the fact that I typically have more armor than I do my weapons means that I typically have more stuff for a tailor on me than I do for an engineer.
Yeah.
Just a small problem.
I'm
sorry.
disappointed in most of the professions and their usability in ratings. I mean, dual crafter is always going to have their use with socket gems, but we don't appear to have any epic rings to craft, or apparently we're crafting staves now, but again, epic staves, they're all level 300s, and we were past 300 by the time we finished a couple of dungeons. It's like, oh, that's great. I still haven't finished my dual crafting.
I was going to say, is that your stuff at base rank, though?
No, this is high rank.
Oh.
Yeah,
it still crafts for 300.
And
I'm
the only higher stuff is bind on pickup.
So you make it for yourself and yourself only.
Yeah. Basically, they're trying to tell you don't use professions to make gear for anyone except yourself.
So the only professions that are still relevant, so far as I've read, is enchanting, alchemy, and herbalism.
But even in the grand scheme of things, enchanting's not worth an awful lot.
No.
Like, there's only three item slots you can enchant this time round.
Oof, saucy.
You know what I would really like? Them to bring back more than one socket in gear.
That'd be fucking lovely.
Or socket bonuses.
I loved coloured sockets. Those were the bee's knees. They weren't fun for Cameron, because Cameron was our dual crafter back then, but I thought they were really fun to, like mix and match and min-max your sockets and get them your best power out.
To be fair, back when that was a thing though, like, all of the different coloured gems had such variety, and you had the combo colour gems which could work in different colours of sockets. It felt a lot more fleshed out, I think, but that's just one part of. I think the profession as a whole is pretty weak.
They've dumbed it down.
Yeah.
They've really dumbed it down. Like, the end game for dual crafting right now is you get 3 gems. A Kraken of Intel, a Kraken of Agility, and a Kraken of Strength. Like,
the end game.
Whoa, hold the fuck up.
The end game for everything but alchemy is basically nothing.
And I'm aware that the collection professions are supposed to be relatively simple, mining, herbalism.
Yeah.
But come on, I want to have some fun with them.
All right. Mark, what's been your bugbear so far?
My bugbear?
Literal bears.
What's annoyed you so far out of this expansion?
Look, I had a lot of things on my mind, and I've completely forgot what I was going to say.
Harmonica.
All right. Well, let's go with Nick then, and we'll cycle back.
Oh,
God. Okay.
No.
fine.
I'll
Good
get
job,
to
guys.
something. Give me a second.
Okay, 1 second has now passed.
I think my only thing is that I mean, except for the fact that I don't like PvP at all, I feel it's very repetitive having to constantly redo these weekly events every single week. I mean, obviously we raid twice a week, so that's 2 days. But outside of that, I'm not a major WoW fan of wanting to jump on every single day just to do a daily or do a weekly. I seem to be finding that a lot of the time it seems to be taken up full time. That's the only reason why I haven't taken up PvP, because I don't want to spend that much more time on WoW.
Yeah.
To be
Just-
fair though,
you
you build up a way of being efficient with that over time.
Yeah, but
But
it's
then you lose, and you have to go again.
yeah, I suppose that's one thing. But it's just, to me, it feels like they've packed a lot of unnecessary, like, well, not unnecessary. For some people, it's all the rage. But for me, it just feels like there's a lot of stuff to do that doesn't really direct any. Like, it sort of basically is the more you play, the better you get. But there's no benefit to just playing in general.
It does seem to be a bit of a case of they've dumped a lot of quantity of shit for you to sloth through, but
Yeah.
not much in terms of the quality.
I mean, it helps, like, obviously people who do all three, like PvP, world questing, as well as mythics, basically shoot up in the levels quickly. But once you get up there, what do you do?
Fucking Cameron.
Join a guild.
Yeah.
Lord it over everyone.
Do some raiding, you fuck.
I think this sort of lies out a more core issue here. There's an awful lot of stuff that you need to do to keep everything optimized. Like, if you want to be at your peak character performance, you realistically should be doing your PvP every week. You should be doing your emissary every third day, or like your emissaries every day, or every third day, or however you want to do it to be able to make sure that you hit all of them. You should be doing your Warfront every time it comes around. You should be doing your island expeditions every time it comes around. None of this is particular, and nothing that I just listed is anything that you would normally choose to do if you're a hardcore, all I'm here for is dungeons and raids. But
No.
Nonetheless, it feels necessary if you want to stay at peak performance.
But then that also comes down to your luck with RNG. If
Fuck off.
if you're doing your dungeons and your raids and you're receiving the gear and everything that you need to keep yourself up there, then you have a very simple choice of, well, do you need to do the rest of this stuff? If RNG is on your side, then you're lucky, you don't have to.
Yeah,
If
but
you're
it's
unlucky,
yeah.
then those options are there to give you a second chance at getting back up where you need to be.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
that's
probably a better way to look at it.
I mean, I understand that's the way the game plays, but it, to me, just feels like that WoW is less of a tactical game as it is just to boost your level as high as you can to out-level the things you can't beat.
Right now, the way that this expansion is going, it's absolutely feeling that way.
Which is alright, but what it means is you're heavily reliant on everyone else in your raid group or dungeon group doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, basically, if you're the lower item level person, you'll get bugged out for being the person who may not have pulled their weight. Even if you did everything perfect to the dot, popped every cooldown required, if your eye level's not high enough, you don't have as big a buff.
Are you that low eye level person?
It sounds like he's speaking from
Yes,
experience.
yeah.
There's no need to point fingers. We're
We're
all friends
pointing
here.
fingers.
I remember what I wanted to say though.
Okay.
Yeah, go Mark.
I warmed him
War
up for you, Mark.
campaign.
Oh
Like-
boy.
it sort of feels like a Legion version, or BFA version, however you say it, of Surima, but just not as exciting.
No,
Like-
yeah,
like
I agree with you there.
They've made 2 different islands, so they've cut the campaign in half, and like in Legion, you had that big campaign, then you had this extra campaign you could do at Cap, and it was just fleshed out, and it was so much stuff to do, and it's just war campaign equivalent. It's just boring. I just wasn't excited about it. It was basically just something I did so I could get that island, the Alliance Island, unlocked and get the flight points and stuff.
And we also had Nathanos Dickwad going, you're shit at your job. And then he's like, could you please do this for me? Please, please, thank you, please. Fuck off, wanker.
To be
Well,
fair, it's just
You must know how to ask because you did it.
a
don't-
problem with the characters on the Horde side.
Fuck Nathanos.
It's what we signed up for, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's like a really bad boot camp. We signed up for it. We have to stick it out to the end, even if we don't like who's in charge.
Alright guys, we've just ticked over the half-hour mark, so we might have to wrap this one up, but if we get the chance, I'm going to try and pull one of these out after a raid night, and we'll get the rest of the guild to give opinions as well.
Oh, we
Good
should
idea.
also talk about Hearts of Azeroth for that too. Cause
Yeah,
Another time.
we'll roll that into the next one. Alright, well, we'll wrap this one up here guys, and to the next time.
Yeah.
End it.